Imagine waking up in 2027 to, find a $4,000 monthly check sitting in your mailbox, completely tax-free.
Yeah, that is a huge deal.
Right, and for a massive percentage of veterans, that number isn't just like a pipe dream anymore. It's actually a mathematical certainty that's kind of knocking on the door right now based on incoming economic data.
Exactly. And I mean, veterans have fought for decades to see this level of recognition.
Yeah, we are finally crossing a really historic threshold. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Veteran Briefing.
It's glad to be here.
Today, our mission for this deep dive is actually incredibly specific. We're going to unpack the projected 2027 VA pay rates so you know exactly what to expect.
And, more importantly, reveal a single strategic move that's worth way more than any annual raise.
Definitely. Because waiting for that October cost of living adjustment or HELA announcement, it's a lot like waiting for a major weather forecast.
Right, you can look at the radar.
Yeah, you see the front moving in based on all the macro data. But today, we are going to tell you exactly how many inches of rain are going to fall right in your own backyard.
Well, the numbers we're tracking right now provide a very clear picture of that forecast. But to maximize your benefits, we first have to, unpack the mechanics behind this incoming 2027 raise.
Okay, so where do we start?
The foundation here is that the 2027 VA raise is projected at roughly 3.5%. And the VA doesn't just pull this percentage out of thin air, or negotiate it every year.
Right.
By law, the VA uses the exact same percentage increase as the Social Security Administration.
I actually want to pause right there because that link is something I think a lot of people misunderstand.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, why does the VA piggyback on Social Security? What's the actual mechanism driving that specific number?
It really comes down to a specific economic metric called the Consumer Price Index for urban wage earners and clerical workers.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Yeah, usually we just call it the CPIW.
Yeah.
Basically, the Bureau of Labor Statistics tracks the cost of a specific basket of goods.
Like groceries and gas.
Exactly. Groceries, gas, housing, clothing, just to see how much the cost of living is actually rising.
Okay, that makes sense.
And decades ago, lawmakers decided that veterans' disability compensation should never lose its purchasing power. So they legally tied the VA's annual increase to that same CPIW formula that protects retirees.
And they measure this data specifically during the third quarter of the year, right? Like July, August, and September.
That is correct.
Okay, so we are basically looking at summer data to dictate winter payouts. But I have to play devil's advocate here on this mechanism.
Sure, go for it.
We've all seen inflation just jump around unpredictably. If these are just summer projections based on a fluctuating CPIW, why should a veteran bank on these specific dollar amounts right now?
Right, why not just wait?
Yeah, why not just ignore the noise and wait until the October lock-in?
Well, because waiting leaves you entirely in a reactive position. By the time we have the July and August CPIW data, that trend line is virtually cemented in place.
Okay, so it's pretty solid.
Yeah, the final September data point might shift the decimal by a tiny fraction, but the foundation is already poured,
Yeah, the concrete is dry.
Exactly. And understanding your projected budget for next year allows you to make informed financial decisions today. It ensures you know exactly what your January payment should look like.
Which means you can instantly spot and appeal any administrative errors the moment that first check hits your account.
Spot on.
Let's actually group these numbers and translate that 3.5% into actual dollars. Because, talking about percentages in the abstract doesn't really buy groceries.
No, it certainly doesn't.
So if you're in that lower tier, say the 10 to 30% range, we are looking at smaller jumps. A single veteran at 10% goes from about $175 to around $182.
Right, a modest bump.
Yeah, and at 20%, it moves from roughly $346 to $358. And at 30%, you go from $537 to about $556. It buys a few extra coffees, but it isn't really changing your ZIP code.
True, but the landscape shifts dramatically when you cross into the middle tiers.
How so?
Well, hitting 40% pushes a single veteran from about $774 over the $800 threshold, landing around $811.
Oh, crossing that 800 mark is nice.
Yeah, and moving to 50% jumps you from $1,102 up to $1,140. This is the range where a massive portion of the veteran population sits.
Right, that's where a lot of people are.
And it's where the annual raise starts to translate into tangible money that actually offsets real utility bills or car payments.
Definitely. And climbing further, that 60% rate goes from roughly 1,413 to around 1,462.
Yeah, and at 70%, you move from 1,759 to 1,821.
Crossing the 80% line takes you from 2,045 to 2,116. The 90% jump pushes the check from 2,290 to 2,370.
And that brings us to the historic milestone we mentioned.
Yes, a single veteran rated at 100% is currently sitting at about 3,831. Applying that projected 3.5% increase pushes that monthly check to right around $3,965.
Seeing that number knock on the door of $4,000 is just monumental.
It really is a huge psychological threshold.
For veterans who have navigated the appeals process, gathered evidence, and fought the bureaucracy for years, this level of compensation represents profound validation of their service-connected sacrifices.
We also need to factor in the dependent multiplier, right? Because those numbers are just the baseline for a single veteran.
Yes, absolutely.
So how does that 3.5% projection apply if you have a spouse, children, or dependent parents?
Dependents essentially scale the entire award upward. The VA applies that exact same 3.5% raise to the dependent portion of the benefit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so a 100% rated veteran with a spouse is actually already over $4,000 a month today.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Yep, and after this projected raise, they are looking at roughly $4,200. And if you add school-aged children into the mix, it climbs significantly higher.
That's substantial.
It is. The system is fundamentally designed to absorb the inflationary impact on your entire household, not just the individual veteran.
That makes total sense. And hey, if you're finding these discussions helpful, please subscribe to Veteran Briefing so you never miss important updates and practical information for veterans and their families.
Definitely. But, while understanding those base rates is critical, focusing entirely on the annual COLA is a fundamental strategic error.
Which brings us right to the core thesis of our deep dive today. We just outlined how the TLA might add $20 to a lower rating, or maybe 130 to a top rating.
Right. It's a slow climb.
But chasing the KLA is the wrong financial strategy because the VA's own compensation chart harbors this hidden mechanism.
It does. The gaps between the rating levels are not evenly spaced at all.
The math doesn't scale linearly, does it?
Not even close. To illustrate this, just look at the bottom of the chart. Moving from a 10% rating to a 20% rating increases your monthly compensation by only about $170.
Okay. Simple enough.
But then examine the leap from a 50% rating to an 80% rating. That jump yields an increase of over $900 a month.
That's a massive difference.
And the absolute top end is staggering. The leap from a 70% rating to a 100% rating represents a difference of more than $2,000 a month.
I always picture the VA rating chart as this highly unusual, almost funhouse-style staircase.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. Like, when you are standing at the bottom and you take that first step from 0 to 10% or 10 to 20, the steps are just a standard manageable height. You step up, you get slightly higher.
Yep, very normal steps.
But as you climb closer to the top, those steps suddenly become 2 or 3 feet tall. You have to expend significantly more effort to climb them, but the view at the top is exponentially better.
The final step perfectly captures that funhouse architecture. The single increment from 90% to 100% is worth more than $1,500 a month all by itself.
Just for that last 10%.
Exactly. And the reason for this non-linear math is the VA's whole person theory. They don't just add percentages together directly.
How does that work?
Well, if you are rated 50% disabled, the VA considers you 50% healthy. A new 10% rating is only applied to your remaining healthy half, meaning it only adds 5% to your overall combined total.
Oh, so as you get closer to 100, the VA math makes it progressively harder to actually move the needle.
Precisely, which explains why those top steps are so steep.
But let's clarify the benefits tied to that top landing, because earlier you mentioned CHAMP, VIA, and Chapter 35. For a veteran who only knows the TRICARE system or the standard GI Bill, what do those acronyms actually entail?
Sure. Hitting 100% permanent and total unlocks an entirely new echelon of auxiliary benefits.
Life-changing stuff.
Oh, without a doubt. CHIMPIO is a comprehensive healthcare program specifically for the spouse and children of a 100% disabled veteran.
So it covers the family.
Yeah, the VA shares the cost of covered healthcare services and supplies. It operates very much like a premium tier civilian insurance plan, but without the massive monthly premiums.
That alone is huge. And what about Chapter 35?
Right. Chapter 35 formerly known as the Dependents Educational Assistance Program, provides a monthly stipend to a veteran's spouse and children to help pay for college, trade school, or certificate programs.
We are literally talking about funding generational advancement.
Yes, we are.
And that doesn't even touch the state-level benefits, right? Like complete property tax exemptions in places like Texas or Florida, which honestly keeps thousands of dollars in your bank account every single year.
It really does.
Yeah.
The overarching strategy becomes glaringly obvious. The TOLA adjusts your baseline by a few dollars.
But correcting your rating moves the needle by thousands.
Exactly. Climbing that uneven staircase to reflect your true medical reality unlocks those life-changing benefits for your entire family.
You make climbing the staircase sound completely logical, but I mean, we all know the VA isn't just handing out 100% ratings because your joints hurt.
Oh, definitely not.
The system is layered with friction. You have to fight tooth and nail, endure frustrating compensation and pension exams, navigate a massive claims backlog.
It is not an easy process.
No, it's not. If I'm sitting at 70%, the VA is going to fight to keep me there. Where do we even start looking for the evidence to force their hand?
Validating that friction is essential. The VA requires bulletproof medical evidence, not just anecdotal complaints.
Right.
When veterans are stuck on the wrong step, the required evidence for that missing money is usually hiding in three distinct areas. The first is unfiled conditions.
Unfiled conditions. You know, this feels deeply tied to military culture, that instinct to just suck it up and push through the pain.
It is the single biggest hurdle veterans face, honestly. Yeah. It's incredibly common for a veteran to separate from service with 4 or 5 chronic issues, but they only ever file a claim for the most severe one, say, a shattered knee.
So they just ignore the rest.
Exactly. They completely ignore the constant ringing in their ears, the tinnitus from the flight line, or the chronic sinus issues they developed after a deployment to the Middle East.
They just absorb those secondary ailments as the basic cost of doing business in uniform.
Exactly. But the VA requires an official claim to provide compensation. You have to document those silent battles.
Okay, so if unfiled conditions are the obvious missing pieces, what about the domino effect?
What do you mean?
Well, I have to imagine an injured knee eventually ruins a good back. Does the VA account for the collateral damage caused by the primary injury?
They absolutely do, and this introduces the second area, secondary conditions.
Okay, how does that work?
This mechanism is crucial.
Yeah.
Under VA regulations, if a condition you're already service-connected for causes a brand new medical problem, that new problem is entitled to its own separate rating on top of the original one.
Wow. Okay, break down the mechanics of proving that. How do you actually force the VA to acknowledge that condition A caused condition B 10 years later?
Let's use your knee example. You are rated for a severe knee injury. Because that knee is unstable, you walk with an altered gait for a decade.
Right, favoring the other leg.
Exactly. That unnatural mechanical stress degrades the cartilage in your opposite hip, leading to severe chronic pain. You didn't injure your hip in the military, but your service-connected knee caused the hip deterioration.
So you need proof of that link.
Yes. To prove this, you need a medical nexus.
Oh, a nexus letter.
Right. You need an independent medical opinion from a qualified doctor who reviews your records and explicitly states that your hip condition is, quote, at least as likely as not caused by your service-connected knee injury.
That specific phrasing is key, isn't it?
Extremely key. The doctor must provide a solid medical rationale, often citing peer-reviewed medical literature, to connect the dots.
You can't just walk into a C&P exam and say, hey, my hip hurts because of my knee.
No, absolutely not. You need the medical nexus to bridge the gap legally.
Okay, so that is the level of evidence required to beat the friction. What about the third area?
Right.
What if the condition is already filed and fully documented, but it has simply gotten much worse over the years?
That leads to the third area, underloaded conditions. You know, the human body degrades over time, and injuries rarely stay stagnant.
That's for sure.
A veteran might have been rated at 30% for PTSD 10 years ago. But over the last decade, their symptoms have really escalated.
Like more severe panic attacks or prolonged depressive episodes.
Exactly. Or extreme difficulty maintaining employment or relationships. Their daily life is profoundly more impacted today than when they first filed.
But if they don't explicitly file for an increase, the VA just assumes they're still living that 30% reality.
Precisely. The VA does not proactively monitor your health to offer you more money.
That would be nice, but yeah.
Right, it doesn't work that way. If your symptoms have worsened and now align with the 50% or 70% criteria in the VA's rating schedule, you must file a claim for an increase.
Which triggers a new exam.
Yeah, it triggers a new C&P exam to evaluate your current severity. Now, many veterans are terrified of poking the bear and risking a reduction.
Oh, absolutely. That's a huge fear.
But if your medical records clearly document a worsening condition, you are leaving substantial compensation on the table by clinging to an outdated rating.
That is such a good point. Now, I want to throw a strategic wrench into this process.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's say a veteran audits their medical reality. They're sitting at 90%. They file for their secondary conditions. They get the nexus letters.
Yep, doing everything right.
Right. But because of that punishing whole person math we talked about earlier, their combined rating lands at 94%.
So close.
Exactly. They physically or mentally cannot hold down a job anymore because of their service-connected disabilities, but the raw math rounds them down, keeping them permanently trapped below that massive top step. I mean, are they just out of luck?
They are not, and this scenario highlights an incredibly vital safety net within the VA system called TDIU, Total Disability Based on Individual Unemployability.
Okay, unpack the mechanics of TDIU for us. How does it bypass the math?
Well, TDIU is the VA's formal recognition that raw mathematical percentages do not always reflect economic reality.
Makes sense.
If your service-connected conditions prevent you from securing and following, quote, substantially gainful employment, you can apply for TDIU.
And what does that actually get you?
If approved, the VA will pay you at the absolute top 100% rate, even if your combined numerical rating is only 70, 80, or 90%.
Wow. How does a VA define substantially gainful employment, though? Because I imagine a lot of veterans might try to work part-time just to survive while they fight their appeals.
It generally means employment that earns above the federal poverty threshold for a single person.
Okay, so a fairly low bar.
Right. The VA looks at whether your disabilities force you into marginal employment, like doing odd jobs for a family member who accommodates your severe limitations, or if you simply cannot work at all.
So you have to prove that limitation.
Yes, it often involves providing statements from previous employers detailing why you had to leave, or, utilizing vocational experts to prove that your specific combination of physical and mental limitations makes you unemployable in the modern workforce.
It really acknowledges the true economic damage of the injuries.
It grants you the maximum monthly pay, and crucially, it unlocks all those auxiliary benefits we discussed earlier, like App VA for your family.
So the static number sitting on your VA file today is rarely the final unchangeable word on your compensation. All right, let's bring all of this together and synthesize the mechanics and the strategies we've covered today. We want you walking away from this deep dive with a clear, empowering mandate. We have 3 key takeaways to frame your approach to 2027.
First, the 2027 projections signal a roughly 3.5% bump. This will push the 100% single rate to a historic milestone, knocking on the door of $4,000 a month, driven entirely by the CPIW inflation data.
Perfect. Second, true financial security comes from scaling the rating chart. We explored the funhouse staircase of VA math. Chasing the annual COLA yields dozens of dollars, but proving your true medical reality and climbing to the rating you actually deserve yields thousands.
And third, if your current rating does not reflect your daily struggles, remember that the missing compensation is almost always trapped in one of 3 places: unfiled conditions you've ignored, secondary conditions requiring a strong medical nexus, or conditions that are currently underrated compared to the actual severity of your symptoms today.
Spot on. Now, here is your one practical action item. I want you to find your projected 2027 amount from the math we discussed earlier. Write that specific dollar amount down so you know exactly what to look for when January rolls around.
That's a great habit.
But once you write it down, I want you to look at that number and ask yourself one brutally honest question. Am I actually on the right line of this chart?
And if the answer is no, your mission shifts from waiting for a weather forecast to gathering your medical evidence. Audit your health, obtain the necessary independent medical opinions, and claim the rating you have rightfully earned.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over. We talked extensively about the friction of the VA system and the temptation to just accept an outdated rating rather than fighting the bureaucracy. Consider this. When you leave money on the table out of frustration, it's not just about you. Those untaxed dollars, the CHOM VA healthcare, the Chapter 35 educational stipends, these are tools designed to fund your children's education and protect your spouse's health long after you are gone. Are you downplaying your symptoms and avoiding the paperwork at the expense of your family's generational security?
That is a powerful question.
We would love to hear from you. Please share your questions, your rating journey, or your own experiences navigating this uneven staircase in the comments.
Hmm.
We encourage you to subscribe, like the video, and most importantly, share this with fellow veterans and military families who might be stuck on the wrong line of the chart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for watching Veteran Briefing. Take care, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next episode.